In the kingdom of Aurelia, lies weren't just common. They were the very foundation of society. Every street, every promise, every smile was polished smooth with a veneer of politeness. Words were chosen not for their honesty, but for their ability to maintain harmony. To speak the plain, unvarnished truth was seen as the height of rudeness, and rudeness was the only sin that was truly unforgivable. Princess Aurelia was born into this world, a world shimmering under the light of crystal chandeliers and heavy with expectation. Her hair was like woven sunlight, a living symbol of Aurelia's flawless facade. The courtiers would whisper that as long as her golden locks shone so brightly, the kingdom itself would never crack. Its perfect surface would never tarnish. On her 16th birthday, a day meant to be of joyous celebration, the Duke of Brambleford arrived to claim her hand in marriage. He was a man praised for his immense wealth, yet secretly feared for his cruelty. But in Valoria, such unpleasant truths were never spoken of, and so he was tolerated, even celebrated. The kingdom held its breath as the king posed the ceremonial question to his daughter. "Do you accept this union?" And that's when it happened. Aurelia did something no royal had done for generations. She told the truth. Her voice, clear and steady, cut through the polite silence of the court. She spoke of the duke's violence, his cunning manipulation. She named the servants who lived in constant fear of him, and the wives he had systematically silenced and buried. A collective gasp swept through the hall. But it wasn't for the duke's monstrous crimes. It was for her shocking, unforgivable impoliteness. She had shattered the harmony. She had spoken the truth. That night, under a moon said to reveal only what one refuses to see, Aurelia awoke to a terrifying transformation. Her golden hair, the symbol of Valoria's perfection, writhed and twisted. It hardened, its color shifting from sunlit gold to a deep, vibrant emerald. Her hair had become a living crown of garden snakes, gentle, curious creatures, their cool scales brushing against her skin. But these were no ordinary snakes. They were constantly whispering, and they spoke no lies. They gave voice to everything people tried to bury deep inside themselves, the bitter jealousy hiding behind a courtier. As flowery praise, the twisted love that fueled a parent's cruelty, the raw fear that propped up a king's authority. When the servants cautiously approached her chambers, the snakes murmured their hidden anxieties and secret dreams. When the polished courtiers drew near, the snakes sobbed out the secrets they kept locked away, the regrets that haunted their nights. The air around Aurelia became thick with unspoken truths. Then her father, the king, came to see her. The moment he stepped into the room, the snakes on her head didn't just whisper or sob. They screamed. They shrieked every delicate deception his reign was built upon, every betrayal he had buried to maintain his power. The king, a man whose entire existence was a carefully constructed lie, couldn't bear the sound of his own soul reflected back at him through his child. He collapsed, not from a physical blow, but from the sheer weight of his own unspoken sins. And so, he did what Valoria always did with an uncomfortable truth. He removed it. Aurelia was exiled. She was taken to the Silent Moor, a desolate place where even the wind seemed to hold its breath, refusing to speak. There, a doorless tower of gray stone awaited her. It had no windows to see the outside world, no mirrors to see her own reflection, and no echoes to carry a sound. She was left with only a basket of yarn, a loom, and one final lie, this one wrapped in the guise of hope. "Silence," her father had told her, "will cure you." Inside the cold, quiet tower, days bled into months. Her only companions were the snakes on her head, and their ceaseless, whispering truths. At first, the sound was overwhelming, a cacophony of pain and regret. But with nothing else to do but listen, Aurelia's fear slowly turned into patience, and her patience into understanding. She began to notice patterns in the whispers. They weren't just random, chaotic noise. They were stories, echoes of choices, and their consequences. She heard the same regrets repeated across generations, the same cycles of pain playing out over and over. She saw how one small, polite lie could fester and grow, poisoning families and friendships from the inside out. With this newfound insight, she turned to the loom. She began to weave. She took the chaotic whispers and spun them into threads of truth. Each tapestry she created was a story. But these weren't stories of the past. They were visions of the future, of what would happen if these truths remained ignored. She wove images of marriages rotting from the inside, of alliances crumbling under the weight of unspoken resentment, of gilded crowns falling into dust. One tapestry was larger and more detailed than all the others. It showed Valoria, her beautiful, perfect kingdom, not falling to an invading army, but collapsing from within, consumed by the very rot of the lies it was built upon. Years passed. The princess in the tower became a local legend. Travelers spoke of a strange, windowless structure on the silent moor, where vibrant tapestries fluttered from the top, depicting impossible, often terrifying scenes. Most who dared to approach the tower would hear the faint whispers on the wind, cover their ears, and flee in terror, unable to face the truths they heard. But some stayed. They stood before the tower, trembling, listening. And they left changed, their own polite facades beginning to crack. Then, one day, a young royal messenger, tired of the suffocating politeness of the court, sought out the legendary tower. He was brave, or perhaps just desperate enough not to cover his ears. He stood below and he listened. The snakes whispered his own deepest fears and the court's hidden corruption. He saw the truth in the tapestries hanging above. And he didn't run, he wept. He wept for his kingdom, for himself, and for the princess who had been forced to carry this burden alone. And then he looked up at the tower and shouted, "Thank you!" That single act of courage was the spark. The messenger took the story of the tapestries and their warnings back with him. The legend spread, no longer as a frightening tale, but as a source of wisdom. People began to seek out the truths Aurelia had woven. The polite lies that held Valoria together started to thin. The kingdom began to fracture, to break apart along the lines of its deepest deceptions. It was a painful, chaotic process. But then, for the first time, it began to heal, truly heal. And in her silent tower, Aurelia finally understood. She had never been cursed. The snakes were not a punishment. They were a crown of truth in a kingdom drowning in polite lies. She had been given the bravest, most powerful magic of all, the ability to stay, to listen, and to tell the truth anyway. And in doing so, she hadn't just saved herself. She had saved them all. Thanks for watching. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more tales that challenge the way we see the world.